Hello again, everybody. Welcome to my first post-Constitution video. I wanted to do something other than the Constitution. I wanted to do things, current events, stuff that we're all worrying about in our society. And one thing that I wanted to do was proposed amendments to the Constitution. Now, let me give you a little background on that. In one of my college classes, one of my professors asked us to draft constitutional amendments that we thought would be good for the country and would facilitate necessary changes that we all know that we need, because we know this country's a mess. If a constitutional convention is called, which we have 18 states, we need 36. If we have a constitutional convention under the provisions of Article 5, I will submit these amendments to this convention. Now, the first amendment that I drafted addresses term limits for members of Congress, which we all can agree across all lines. Term limits for Congress is needed. And let me give you a little background on that. Because there are no term limits for members of Congress, every single office in Congress is based on seniority. Committee leaderships, the president pro tempore of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, the floor leaders in both houses, they're all based on seniority. It's not your skill, it's how long you've been there and who you know. These amendments, or this particular one, will help change that. There's another one that's going to help change it, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. This First Amendment is term limits for Congress. No person shall be elected to the office of representative for more than 6 consecutive terms, and such person must refrain from seeking election as a representative for at least 4 years, provided such person has served 6 consecutive terms. Members of the House serve 2-year terms, and this section limits them to 6 consecutive terms, or 12 years. If they've served the 12 years, then they must wait for at least 4 years before they can run for election to the House again. This will benefit the voters in the congressional districts because it will give the candidate a chance to reconnect with the people of their district and pretty much give them an opportunity to live under the laws that they have passed so they can get a better understanding of what we have to go through, because I feel that members of Congress are so detached from the people that they supposedly represent because they've been in Washington for so long. I mean, you got people up there that's been up there 25, 30, 40 years. Strom Thurmond served half his life, more than half his life, in the United States Senate. That's too long. And this will give, also it'll help prevent corruption, because if somebody isn't going to be in Washington but for 12 years at the time or less, lobbyists are less likely to invest in buying congressional votes. And it also will eliminate the seniority-based offices, and people will get offices based on their skills rather than how freaking long they've been there. The next one just addresses the Senate. No person shall be elected to the office of senator more than twice consecutively, and such person must refrain from seeking election as a senator for at least 4 years, provided such person has served 2 consecutive terms. Just as with the House, the Senate will be limited to 12 years in succession, with a 4-year break between leaving and seeking election again. And as I said before, it will help with the corruption, and it will also give them a chance to reconnect with their voters. The next section says the House of Representatives of the United States. Wait a minute, that's not the right one. My fault. My notes got messed up. Any person who has served as a senator or representative that has failed to secure re-election to their respective offices must refrain from seeking election to a seat in the opposite House of Congress from which they previously served for at least 4 years. This pretty much says that a member of Congress who has lost re-election to the House that they currently serve in, they will not be able to run for election for the other House for at least 4 years. For example, if you're serving in the House of Representatives, but you don't win re-election, you have to wait at least 4 years before you try running for the Senate, and vice versa. This is another way to keep people from staying up there longer than they need to be. And, I think we can all agree that limiting these terms would solve a lot of problems. I'm sure, because I always use this as an example. If anyone has ever seen the movie The Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy plays a con man who happens to have the same name as a congressman who just recently passed away in the midst of the election. And because he has the same name, he runs for election and doesn't show his face, and people are so used to voting for the name because he's been up there for so long that the con man gets elected to Congress. And the only difference is he still continues his cons, but everything he does is legal because he's in Congress. He can get away with it. And that's the truth. That movie was so true. If you haven't seen the movie The Distinguished Gentleman, I suggest you do watch it, because it is a very enlightening movie on what does go on in Congress. The next amendment that I proposed addresses congressional leadership and imposes limitations on these leaders. Let's see. The first section: the Senate of the United States shall choose a President pro tempore to preside over the Senate in the absence of the Vice President of the United States. No person shall be chosen as President pro tempore who shall not have met the qualifications for President of the United States and who shall be a current member of the United States Senate. It basically says that the Senate gets to choose the President pro tempore, but the person must meet the constitutional qualifications for president: 35 years old, at least 14 years a resident of the United States, a natural-born citizen, and also you cannot be a sitting senator to be president pro tempore. This is important because the president pro tempore of the Senate, as I previously stated in my constitutional videos, is usually the longest-serving senator, and this person is usually 70 plus years old. Well, let's see. The president pro tempore, being third in line to succeed to the presidency, if somebody was to kill the president, the vice president, and the Speaker of the House, you'd have a 70 plus year old individual succeeding to the office of president. This person could die at any time depending on what kind of health they're in. And if they've been in the Senate for any length of time, their health is a pile of crap to begin with, because that stuff will take its toll on you. Yes, I know Donald Trump just turned 73 years old, but the man's in great health. I mean, physically, he's in great health. I mean, he may not have the body of Adonis, but you don't see the guy suffering from health issues. You don't see him going to the hospital a lot. You don't see him having any problems. But usually this person is like 10 years or more older than Trump. Referring to, somebody like Strom Thurmond, who was in his frickin' 90s when he became president pro tempore. Alright, now back to the section where I screwed up on. The House of Representatives of the United States shall choose a Speaker to preside over the House and a Speaker pro tempore in the absence of the Speaker. No person shall be chosen as Speaker who shall not have met the qualifications for President of the United States and who shall be a current member of the House of Representatives. Any person chosen as Speaker pro tempore must meet the same qualifications as Speaker, but may be chosen from the current membership of the House of Representatives. This section requires the House to choose a Speaker and a Speaker pro tempore. And just like with the President pro tempore of the Senate, the Speaker and the Speaker pro tempore must be able to qualify for President of the United States. but the Speaker pro tempore is allowed to be a member of the House while the Speaker is not. Again, this will prevent someone who is ancient from succeeding to the office of President should it be necessary. The next section, if the Speaker of the House of Representatives dies, resigns, or is removed from office, the Speaker pro tempore will become Speaker upon his resignation from his seat in the House of Representatives, provided such person was chosen from the membership thereof. Pretty much, that's cut and dry. If the Speaker pro tempore becomes Speaker, if the Speaker dies, resigns, or is removed from office, and if that person is a House member, he must first resign his seat. The President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives may only vote in the case of a tie. Pretty self-explanatory too. I mean, this will help reduce corruption of the leadership in Congress. And, okay. Now this amendment I know I spoke about when I was doing the amendments to the Constitution. And I did draft it back in college. So we're going to talk about it. This next amendment repeals the 17th Amendment and restores the original intent of the framers of the Constitution. The 17th article of amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. Section 2. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state chosen by the legislature thereof for 6 years and shall follow the regulation and organization provided for in the Constitution. This section restores the power of the state legislatures to choose senators as originally intended by the framers. This will reduce the influence of special interests on United States senators. Next section. If the legislature from any state shall not have chosen a senator before the next required meeting of Congress, then the executive authority in said state shall make a temporary appointment which will expire once a senator has been chosen. This section will resolve the issue of a state legislature deadlock, should there be one, in choosing a senator. The legislature must choose a senator by the following January 3rd. If not, the state's governor will appoint a senator to represent that state until the legislature has chosen someone. That will eliminate, 1, more corruption, and 2, if there is a deadlock, you have someone in the Senate representing that state. That was the issue that people were drawing to when the 17th Amendment was passed, that the state legislature was not choosing senators in time and states went without representation in the Senate. That eliminates that. This next one, I think we're all going to enjoy. It's been discussed frequently lately, and I think our favorite member of Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has brought this up lately. And I think they're not going to be too thrilled about this. That's why these amendments are going to have to go through a constitutional convention, because I'll be damned if Congress passes this stuff. They're not going to do this to themselves. They enjoy their power. It refers to congressional pay. Now, I may be going a little bit higher than some people think, but I've done some figuring. The senators and representatives in Congress shall receive a compensation for their services that shall not exceed $15 for every hour worked. Section 2. The head of the Department of Treasury shall appoint a keeper of records of congressional time worked. Each member of Congress must check in and out daily, and unless actually working on business coming before their respective houses, no time shall be recorded and no emolument received. An emolument is a payment. The Secretary of Treasury appoints a bookkeeper to keep track of congressional payroll. The members must check in and out on a daily basis, and unless they're actually working, they don't get paid. Hallelujah. In the next section, no member of Congress shall receive any gift or other emolument of any kind from any other source during their continuance in office. Violation of this provision will subject said person to impeachment and removal from office. This section bans members of Congress from receiving any pay of any kind from anywhere except their official paycheck from the government. If they do, it's an impeachable offense. That will get rid of lobbyists. Because lobbyists buy congressional votes. We all know this. Why we haven't stepped in as the people of this country and done something about it before is beyond me. Congress and the rest of the federal government has succeeded in dumbing down the people of this country to believe that there's nothing that we can do about this. I mean, when it comes time to vote, I hear people say, "Well, it don't do me no good. They're going to put who they want to up there anyway." Well, motherfucker, have you tried? Have you tried doing something about it? Because you got the power. You're the people of this country. You have the power. And these guys need to be reminded that they work for us, not us work for them. And this amendment will help with that. It's my view that these restrictions on Congress will be a welcome change to the corrupt lawmaking body that is full of men and women north of 60 years old and have been there for 20 plus years. It's ridiculous how long these people have been there. Now I can understand if you have someone who is in good health like Trump. Or for instance, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump are the same age. Okay, Trump's a couple of months older than he is. Bill Clinton's in pretty decent health. So I could understand if someone is in decent health and they're north of 60 or 70 or whatever, and they're running for office. But if you've got serious medical issues, you have no business being in public office. And just like if somebody is, if a member of the Senate is sick and they've been out for the longest period of time, you ain't working on the country's business. Your state ain't being represented. So you need to resign and let somebody else go up there and do the job. That's the way I feel about it. Now, I drafted a few more, but I really didn't get a chance to get to them. One was defining citizenship, and I forgot what the other one was. Oh, God, my memory's getting bad. I'm getting old. But yeah, I mean, one of them was defining citizenship, and it pretty much defined that if you were born in the United States and one or both of your parents were American citizens, then you are an American citizen. And if you're born outside the United States and one or both of your parents is an American citizen, then you are. That's pretty much the law right now, but it's not clearly defined. That's why there's a whole great deal of question over Obama's citizenship and the fact that his birth certificate may have been forged and stuff like that. Obama's mother, Ann Dunham, was born in Wichita, Kansas. No records exist of Ann Dunham renouncing her American citizenship and becoming a citizen of another country. Therefore, the fact that she was an American citizen and Obama was born to her, regardless of where he was born, be it Kenya, Hawaii, the fucking moon, the man is an American citizen. And that's just the way it is. But I think it needs to be more clearly defined, because you get a lot of these folks coming across the border and they're having anchor babies. They're getting pregnant and having a kid over here, and that kid is automatically an American citizen because he was born on American soil, and mama and daddy can't get deported back to Mexico because you're deporting little Pedro, and little Pedro is an American citizen. I use Mexico for an example because that's the issue we're having right now with a lot of folks coming over from Mexico. But it's not just Mexicans. It's people from other countries who are using the Mexican border with the United States to come over here. Canada is better about controlling their border. But I'm for Trump's wall. I really am. I think it's a good idea. I think it will help solve our issue. But it looks like Mexico is finally taking their heads out of their butts and is going to do the job that they're supposed to do. And that's just the whole gist of it. And so that'll be the end of this video. I'm sorry it's so short. I like to do these long discussions with you. But I'm going to do another video tomorrow talking about the First Amendment and the fact that it's slowly being eroded. And we're going to get into some information here, and you're going to hear a lot of stuff that might piss you off. I'm sorry if it does. But it's the truth, and it's fact. I don't give anything that's not fact unless I tell you this is my opinion. So what we're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna do another video tomorrow. I'm gonna upload this one, and peace.